Yeah. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. Good morning. I'm Marilyn Groves, and we're going to hear about the Waypoint home in Wabash from Marilyn Mitchell, Custer-Mitchell. But first, we'll have a word of prayer. Creator God, thank you for the safety that brought Marilyn here this morning, and be with her as she goes back home. Soften our hearts for those around us. Change the hearts of leaders in the world so that war will stop. Be with the victims of drug addiction and give them hope to change. In the name of our Lord, the Prince of Peace. Amen. Marilyn has been the executive director since April of 22 of the Waypoint Wabash organization and home. Prior to that time, she served on the board of directors of that organization. Since 2016, she's been working with Wabash County Drug Steering Committee on various initiatives in Wabash County to serve those with substance use disorder. Prior to joining Waypoint Wabash, she served as the president of Parkview Wabash Hospital for 14 years. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. And if they get the PowerPoint up, that's fine. It's not fancy by any means. Just kind of goes along with my comments. And in fact, the picture of the house that I have is old. I saw that and I went, oh, that's really old, because there's so much that's been done on the outside to make it look so much better. So again, Marilyn Custer-Mitchell. I have been the executive director at Waypoint since April of this year. I am retiring from that position in July 1st. So when I was on the board and we were looking for an executive director, I retired from the hospital and I got approached and said, why don't you do this? We were at that point renovating the house, remodeling it, a lot of work. And so I said I would do it for a year or so. July will be a year or so. And my goal was to get the house opened, completed, the renovations open, operational, and we're doing that. So I thought I'd try and retire for real this time. We'll see. I'm not good at it. My husband just looked at me and said, so what are you going to do now? I said, I don't know. So I'm excited to tell you about Waypoint. Waypoint, our legal name is Wabash Recovery Services, Inc., doing business as Waypoint. So if you hear the other one, that's what it's about. If you go to the second slide, just a little background on it. The Drug Steering Committee started in 2016, and it's not a legal entity. It's just a group of citizens from throughout the county who are interested in helping those with substance use disorder and trying to stop that cycle and trying to keep more people from getting involved with substance use disorder. We have 3 subcommittees: the prevention, the treatment, and a transition committee. This house came from that transition committee. We, in about 2018, realized there is nothing for women. If they're coming out of jail or rehab or prison, there is no place for them to go to help them get back into society. Typically, they go where they came from, which is with people they used. And sometimes there was abuse involved. So there was just no safe place. So we worked on this from 2018 till we opened early October in 22. We did look at working with New Beginnings, a men's home down in Wabash. And we looked at working with Hope House in Marion. Just thinking, instead of recreating this wheel, let's work with someone who's done this. And both those fell apart for various reasons. They were both interested. We were interested. They were having internal problems in their organization, so it just didn't work. We do have a board of trustees, board of directors. They include Jay Driscoll, who's with the YMCA, Kevin Trotter with Whites, Bill Kanya, who's the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana executive, Dusty Cuttress with Beacon, Melissa Ford Kalbfeld with the Community Foundation here, Dave Heist, who's a community volunteer, Andy Bain, who's I think with Midwest Eye, Patty Godfrey with the YMCA, Mayor Scott Long, Jordan Tandy, who's an attorney, Abby Walden, who's with Court Services in Wabash County, Nathan Wybrew with the Wabash First United Methodist Church, and Nancy Lauer, who's a resident of North Manchester and a small business owner. So when we started this, some key partners, I always have to mention them. Indiana Landmarks, and I'll talk about them a little bit, and Community Foundation of Wabash County, hugely helpful to us. We started this old house, and we knew we needed to raise some money, and we were not even a corporation. So the Community Foundation stepped in and started helping us. They accepted our money on behalf of us. So huge thing. Next slide. This is a picture of the house, but it's really so bad. I need to get a new one as soon as that snow goes away. That front mess was mostly poison oak and poison ivy. We found out the hard way. Yeah, we had volunteers clearing one day, and all 6 people ended up with stuff. My husband had been weed whacking it, and I said, "Oh, don't do that anymore." It is now all landscaped, and with some landscape rock at the bottom. It's a very steep hill coming down to the sidewalk. There are some lights in those rocks and some ground cover that'll take care of the big steep part of the hill. So it's been beautifully done by Nate's Landscaping. This house is located just on Highway 13, just north of the Shell station in Wabash. It's had 6 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms. It now has 7 bedrooms and 6.5 bathrooms because we added one downstairs for our house manager. Next slide, please. The little bit of history on the house. Actually, we had some Ball State University students in architecture and other things come in and just do a little look at the house and give us some suggestions, most of which we implemented. But it was built around 1875. We say around because it wasn't there in 1872, and it was in 1875, so somewhere in there. It was built by Elizabeth Caldwell, who was the widow of General William Caldwell. Cowgills purchased the house in 1894, but Elizabeth lived there until her death in 1900. So at that point, it was a 2-family home. It's been a single-family home and a 2-family home at various times, and it's also been a rental property. The Dennises lived in the house with their daughter and son-in-law, Lawrence Philpott and Leyland Dennis Philpotts. Somewhere in the 30s, there was some renovation done on the house. All the bathrooms were made into these beautiful, with beautiful tile, very Art Deco. They were gorgeous, and they were in remarkable shape. And so our goal was to keep them. We couldn't do it, but we tried. There's one bathroom that still has the tile. When the plumbing had to go, which if you can imagine, it had to go. You had to go through the tile to get to it. It was hard, but that was one of the saddest days, I thought. I walked in and the contractors told me, well, the good news is the toilet's all flush. I said, great. And they said, yeah, they kind of drain. And I said, so no suction? And they said, no. And then 3 of the bathtubs just wouldn't even drain. And we had to replace all the plumbing. Again, it's an old house. Even it was renovated in the 30s. That's a ways ago. So one fun fact, Mrs. Leyland Dennis received the Distinguished Citizen Award for Wabash County in 1963. So just FYI in that house. I don't remember when they bought it. Cleo and Wilma in 1981, the Snyders bought the house. They used it for rental property for years. And then the last several years, Cleo just used it as his office. He used the front 2 rooms as his office. So probably 15 years before we got hold of it, it hadn't been used, except for him going in and using the front 2 rooms. Houses don't do well with nobody using them. So Indiana Landmarks bought it in 2020. And I immediately, because people knew we were looking at this, that people kept saying, Marilyn, you need to see this house. It'd be great. And if you drove by on Wabash Street, Highway 13 at that point, you couldn't see it. It was overgrown with trees. And I kept saying, there's no house there. It's woods. Someone said, drive around the side the one way. So I did. and there's a house. And I went, okay. It was a mess, but it's a beautiful big old house. So we were happy that Indiana Landmarks worked with us. They started the renovation before we could. And then when we got to the point we could take over the renovation, they donated the cost of the house, about $73,000 to us. So all we had to pay them was for the renovation that they had done to that point, which was very generous for us. So next slide, please. Waypoint's purpose, mission, and vision. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can read, but I love our mission. It's to serve as a waypoint, hence the name, between chaos and living free in safety and structure. And that's what we really want to do to help these women, because they are in chaos. And it's in, whether or not you want to believe substance use is a disease and a disorder, I truly do believe that. Bowen Center did a presentation a few years ago about how substances and substance use changes the brain chemistry and the way the brain works. And it can take up to a year after someone stops using for their brain to get back into gear. So when people with substance use disorder make bad decisions, and they do, they aren't thinking. And I think, why would they do that? Why aren't they just doing what's logical? But that's not the way their brain works right now. And it just takes time, and they really have to retrain their brain. And there are all sorts of research out there on that. We also know that it is in our, and I say collective, our society's best interest for people not to be using drugs. If they're sober and they're in recovery, they're working, they're paying taxes, they're using less court services, less social services. So it really does behoove us to help them as much as we can. And they're contributing members of our society, and that's really our goal, is to help them get to that point. Next slide. So there's several things on a table. One is a panel card about Waypoint, and we just talk about how big this problem is in our county. And please believe me, it's no worse here than anywhere else. In fact, there are some places in southern Ohio, northern Kentucky, which is where the opioid crisis started, they say. And it just, why? There's a book on it if you want to know one theory. But just some stats. In 2021, 284 women were incarcerated in Wabash County. 78% of those were directly related to substance use. And 80% of the women incarcerated came to jail actively using some substance. It's a huge number of people that wouldn't even be in our jails if we could solve this problem. So a little bit about the house, though. You can take one of these if you want to. I have a few other things out there if you want. We can take up to 12 women plus our house manager, and that's the bedroom we added. We took what was the dining room and we made it into a bedroom and bathroom for the house manager on the main floor. We have a beautiful sun porch, and we use that as our dining room. When women come to the house, we have 2 to 3 women in each bedroom as well, and each bedroom has a bathroom, which is really, really nice. Women who've been in other homes could walk in and say, this is gorgeous. And the bedrooms, a few of them I think are a little small. They say they're bigger than any bedroom I've been in a house. So they're very happy with the house. There are 2 or 3 in a bedroom because people in recovery, isolation is not good for them. They need to be with other people. It's just better for them. It's better for human beings in general, but it also holds them more accountable. So that's one of the things. And we do hold them accountable through a variety of ways. When they come, we ask them to commit to 9 months. We know that 9 months is really what it's going to take for them to get back stable and stabilized and working, and they'll get financially stable at that point, et cetera. Mentally stable, they can be working through therapy and things like that. We require them to gain and maintain employment. They do have to pay program fees at the house, and most women coming out of jail or rehab or anything don't have any money. So we do a temporary loan program, and then they have to pay us back. So they have to pay not only their weekly fees, but pay us back what they owed us, because we require a deposit and some things. If they have any court programs they're involved in, probation, drug court, et cetera, they have to go to all those appointments. If we require almost all of them to be assessed by a local behavioral health provider. And if they are in a group therapy or individual therapy, they have to make all those appointments. They have to participate in house activities. So we'll do some community service activities. They have to do chores. We have a chore list and it's assigned out every week and they have to do their chores. Especially the more women we're getting in the house, the more those chores are important. When there are 2 or 3, they all clean together. You get 10 or 12 and it gets a little bit, even 5 gets a little bit hairy. There's a curfew. They have to be in by curfew and they can't leave until the next morning when our curfew lifts. So there's some accountability there. They have to purchase all their own food and clothing. We don't purchase that. We purchase things like paper towels, toilet paper, linens, towels, cleaning supplies, things like that. But other than that, they're responsible for purchasing their own things. They are held accountable through sobriety through random drug testing. They breathalyze every night. Every resident and the house manager breathalyze every night. So if somebody, and we have several ladies who say, I never did like drinking anyway. But we know that a person who is a drug user, if they really, really are desperate and they're feeling the need to use, they will substitute whatever's easiest, cheapest, and most available, including alcohol. So they breathalyze every night. We do random drug screens throughout the week. And that's probably the one thing that if somebody fails, they have to leave. That's the one thing that there's no negotiation on. Other than that, it just depends on circumstances. And we've had one woman relapse while she was in the house. She's currently in a residential treatment program and should be back to us in the next 2 weeks. So we're excited she'll be coming back to be with us. We expect women to stay 9 to 18 months. They may not. I've discovered, and our house managers from Hope House down in Marion, she says it's very similar there, that 2 to 4 week time frame, first 2 weeks is hard because you come in and it's kind of like being back in junior high. You've got a curfew. I mean, I haven't had a curfew in years. You've got a curfew. Someone's telling you have to go to these meetings. You've got to start looking for a job. And if they're not, I'm asking them, where'd you apply today? So there's a lot of expectations. They know that coming in, but living that is different. But we know structure is important, very important. So 2 weeks is a tough time, the first 2. The 2 to 4 is when we see them leave early, more likely. I don't know why. In my brain, I think they're comfortable, they're safe, they're not using, they think I've got this. And some friend offers them a place to live for free. Why would I pay you to keep doing this? And they leave. Of the ones who have left early, a few I don't have any idea what they're doing. One I know has started using again. She's in Wabash, and some of the other ladies see her occasionally and know she's using again. One is not, but it's hard. She's struggling, and she says, "Well, I'm okay." So it is just hard because where do they go? But back to people they know, which is people they've been using with. So if you go to the next slide. So the house is open. We opened early October. My goal was September, the end of September. I didn't quite make it. Took our first ladies in late October. The exterior of the house had to be kept to historical standards per Indiana landmark, so there wasn't a lot we could do. The new roof is not really slate. The old roof was slate, and this isn't, but it's a slate look, and Indiana landmarks approved that. Anything else we do to the exterior, we have to get their approval. They've been wonderful, and they're very reasonable. They understand that, we're not going to get everything back. We need to replace our windows in the next few years. They're all old, and they're all wood and single pane. We do have some storm windows that help, but it's a drafty old house. Not very efficient. So we know we need to do that. We estimate that'll cost us probably over $100,000. There are like 42 windows in this house. A lot of windows. I counted them one day. Because I was saying, how much is this going to cost me? They're a lot. The interior, we had a lot of leeway. Now, having said that, we didn't do a lot of renovation just because we couldn't afford to. But the house is beautiful. We did add a wall and reconfigure the area by the house manager bedroom. But other than that, we contractors tore it up. Every time I'd walk in, there were more holes in the ceilings and walls, and that just drives you crazy. And then suddenly they start putting it back together, and then we painted. And the house got bigger every time we went to paint more. It just seemed to grow. It was huge. Most of the furniture in the house, all but a very little, is donated from various organizations and people and all. We did purchase bedroom furniture. We had people who wanted to decorate a bedroom, and that we decided not to do that simply because we didn't want one bedroom decorated by Ethan Allen and one by the Lighthouse Mission. We didn't, how do you get people to understand that these all need to be similar? So we purchased bedroom furniture. Every bedroom looks the same from a furniture and bedding standpoint. They are very different in the size and the style of the bedrooms because of the house. But operations, we do have a house manager. She lives at the house. She also works. So she's in recovery as well. She's about 2.5 years in, well, a little more than that, almost 3, 2 years, 9 months into recovery. She stays there. She makes sure the women are doing what they need to do. She's, again, goes to work and comes back, but she's there quite a bit. So in the future, what are we going to do? We're going to keep working with the Drug Steering Committee and other organizations fighting the disease. We maybe at some point we'll decide to open another house. I don't know. Right now we're trying to get this one. That first year's hard. Lots of work, lots of turnover, lots of things we're learning. I learned a lot. We regularly, we want to regularly convene all those dealing with substance use disorder in Wabash County together. And we have the Drug Steering Committee, but we probably need to get that group pared down to who's providing services and how do we meet once every quarter? And what do we need to be working on? The treatment committee has identified transportation is an issue in our county. No surprise, we all know that. And trying to get people to meetings, to NAAA meetings. They all happen, most of them happen 7:00 at night. Transit doesn't run. Trying to get them to treatment. Parkview Wabash does an intensive outpatient program, one in the morning, one from 5 to 8 at night. Transit doesn't run at 8. So getting people to treatment things is hard, and it's a problem. So we're working on that. And then just to talk a little bit about donations. So there's a paper in the back. This is just a basket idea. People say, what can I do besides donate money? We put together a laundry basket with the items, any of the items you can for women coming in, because many of them literally come from jail or rehab and they have nothing or very little, or my clothes are all at my brother's in Logansport. They don't have a car. So it's difficult. The other thing the ladies will tell you is we can use, I will tell you, because I'm buying it, toilet paper, paper towels, things like that. Laundry, the ladies will tell you laundry soap. I don't buy that for them. And they're like, tell them laundry soap. We need laundry soap. So we'll take laundry soap. Also, these cards and envelopes are out there. These are just a financial donation or a pledge. We will always take cash. We know that a woman who comes in and is paying her way, in the first 6 months, we will have a deficit of about $1,100. And that's if we're full. And with fewer women, that goes up. So the first 6 months is at least $1,100 deficit. Just operations of the house. Again, old house, not the most efficient. Right now we have 4 women in the house plus our house manager, so 5. And we've got another lady scheduled to come tomorrow. I say scheduled because I have learned, well, they show up. I don't, as I say, until I see the whites of their eyes, I don't believe they're coming. Many are scheduled and things happen. One lady was supposed to come Tuesday and The county she's in, which I can't remember, the community corrections, she's in community corrections there. She's coming out of a rehab facility, but she is involved with community corrections. They won't let her leave the county. And the rehab facility didn't know that at the time. So stuff happens. And then we have women who hear all our guidelines and expectations and say, no, not interested. And we say, okay, because we don't need to put that energy in if they're not ready. And some come and try and they aren't ready. So that's just part of the process. But we'll keep going. We have, again, another lady scheduled to come tomorrow. And we have several more that we're talking to in the interview process. We get applications, probably 3 a week. We have turned down some. We are not a mental health provider. Many women with substance use disorder many people with substance use disorder have mental health issues as well. We can deal with some of those, depression, anxiety, things like that. We don't do schizophrenia. Bipolar depends on how severe it is and how well controlled they are. So we take it, each person, we just evaluate individually. And that's been a huge learning curve as well. But so we talk to them and their caregivers and find out if they're the right person for the house. But for the most part, they don't have some significant mental health issues and they want to try, we're going to try and help them. We don't turn down many. More deselect themselves when they find out our requirements. I've had people call me and say, I left Place of Grace, which I believe is either in Fort Wayne or Warsaw. But I'd like to come to your place. And I said, well, why'd you leave Place of Grace? Well, they were too strict and I've heard you're more lenient. Well, right away, okay, let me explain our program to you. And once I'm done, they say, all right, I'll think about it. And they deselect. So it's just the way it is. We're new. People think, oh, they'll be easier to deal with. And we do give some leeway where it's appropriate. We only have visitors Monday through Friday, or on Sundays from 1 to 5 are allowed in the house for 2 hours at a time. And, but if the women have children that want to come visit, especially small children, want to come visit some other time, we're going to make accommodations for that. We're going to, make accommodations for people who are trying to see their kids. So questions. I can talk forever. So I'll just ask you all if you have questions for me. Yes. Absolutely. That's why she's in recovery and why I'm not. He said, it seems that the house manager who's in recovery and almost 3 years in, is a good example and can help the others. And that is exactly true, and why the house manager is one of the requirements is they have to be in recovery. We had an initial house manager that didn't work out. I was kind of the interim, which is scary because I'm not in recovery and I know enough to be dangerous. Luckily, we didn't have a lot of women, and the women we had right then they were motivated. They wanted to be here. They were go-getters. So that made it a little easier. And she just had a good friend relapse, our house manager. And it was interesting because that was Monday and it devastated her. She did not see it coming and had no idea. And the other ladies in the house were able to help her. But in her case, she's far enough into recovery. She did what many of us would do and said, I'm going to refocus on why I'm doing this because I'm not going there. I need to remember why I'm doing this and what I need to do and what my next steps are, which is what you need to do. Many people in recovery, that would be their trigger to start using again, especially early in recovery. So it's hugely important that they are in recovery and that they're through the process. And she lived in a house, in Hope House in Marion, so she understands how the houses work too. I've never done that, so I'm kind of winging it. I'm not kind of, I am just winging it. What other questions? I'm trying to think how many women we've had come through, because we have, so we've had 9 women come through. 3 left within 2 weeks each, maybe 3 weeks. One relapsed and she's coming back in the next few weeks. Another one wasn't with us even 24 hours. She had some significant mental health issues that we could not handle. We got her to an appropriate place, not our house. She needs 24-hour care or oversight, I should say. Yes.
Do you accept people if they're there for that, let's say 9 months, and then they leave and they relapse? Do you take them back a second or third or fourth time?
If it's harder to come back to the house than to come in the first time. So if they relapse and leave and want to come back, we require them to show us that they are going to meetings, that they've kept a job, that they've done some things. They come back, they have to pay us anything they owe us, which if they'd had a loan, they may owe us, which means it's more expensive. And they have to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. We require 5 meetings. So NAAA, Celebrate Recovery, et cetera. We require 5 a week. They have to go to 90 in 90 days. That's every day for 3 months. We just have stricter guidelines for that. But absolutely, we'd bring them back. One thing I do know about recovery is that some people, first time, they get through it. First time they try. That's not the norm. It's more likely that they 2, 3, 4 times. So if they want to come back and they're serious, we'll bring them back. One of the ladies who left us early, I don't know that she relapsed, but she wanted to come back about 3 weeks later. I said, okay, let me tell you what that looks like. And I started, you have to get a job. You have to go to these meetings. You have to remember all our guidelines. And I told her how much she owed. And I said, but if you are serious and want to live up to those guidelines, because she didn't when she was there the first time, she was skirting them. I said, then I'll negotiate that money. I'll negotiate the financial with you to help you. But the guidelines, she said, I'll think about it. I hear that a lot. That means no. I say, okay. So we do accept them back. And I tell them when we do intake, when they first get there, before you think about leaving, talk to us, because it's harder to come back. It's easier to stay here and just grit through it and work with your sponsor and work with your peer recovery coach and work with the house manager and figure out how to get through whatever you're going through. So we'll give them every chance we can to help. Yes.
This kind of a problem that we have is pretty big in our country. How is it that we're going to turn the corner on that? Is Waypoint one of the bright shining lights is going to help get this thing turned around or what?
I'd love to say yes. We are one of many organizations doing this. One of the things we do that many of the organizations don't do, we do accept women under medication-assisted treatment. So they're drug addicts. They're on methadone, which gets you. I hear that and people go, oof, or Suboxone, same kind of thing. Those are narcotics, but when they're controlled by a physician or a provider, and then the person's put on them and then they're titrated down over time along with therapy, the person can get clean that way. So we do accept medication-assisted treatment. It adds a complexity because now I have a narcotic in the house. So it's behind a locked door, in a locked file cabinet, in a locked medicine cabinet or medicine box. So there's 3 locks to get to it. Plus you have to get into the house. And the house manager, one of their requirements is they have to give those women those drugs every day. So they have to pass them out. So it's a level of complexity, but our board kind of said, trying to help. Very few houses in Indiana take medication-assisted treatment. And we said, you know what? If we're here to help people, if we can handle it, let's do it. Let's help them. How do we stop it? We stop it by prevention And our prevention subcommittee of the drug steering committee does a phenomenal job. They're doing education in every elementary school every year. Like 3rd and 4th grade, which it just blows my mind. First time they said 4th grade, I said, you gotta be kidding me. What was scary is the presentation I went to, they were showing video or pictures of, I'm gonna call them pipes, but an adult had used to smoke crack or whatever, made out of foil, aluminum foil. And there were kids in the audience who recognized those things. That scared me. So there's some generational stuff out there too that it's going to take a long time to fight. But that's how we're going to stop it. I don't know that we can ever stop the flow of drugs into our country or being made here. And fentanyl, if you haven't heard about that, is super scary. Super scary because very small amounts can kill a person. You know, we have our ladies there aren't enough support group meetings in our county. There just are not enough of them. And so they immediately said, well, can we start an AA and an NA meeting here? I said, absolutely. That's been a goal. So we have an NA meeting Tuesdays at 5 and an AA meeting Tuesdays at 7 and Sundays at 5 is the AA meeting. And we're seeing more people come to those. But it's just a process and it's not easy. It really isn't. But I think we have to do more education. I started to tell you that because during our meeting Tuesday night, one of the people at the meeting got a call that another person many of them knew had overdosed at an intersection XYZ. And our ladies grabbed some Narcan naloxone. It's a nasal spray that will reverse the effects of opioids immediately, and ran. And handed it to these people, and they went to the intersection and helped save this man's life. And I will tell you, our first responders and our ER, they get very frustrated because they see people do it over and over and over again. And it's hard not to get jaded by that. And they'll even see people who've seen a friend die take the same drug because I want that high that he had. Again, their brains are not right. It's not right. And you say, but he died, but he had a great high beforehand. And it's just not right. But their brain, the best way someone put it to me from the guy at Bowen Center who did this presentation was their only focus of their brain is that next high. And it overrides everything. And it's hard for me to understand that. And it's, as somebody said to me, it makes it harder for us to have empathy and sympathy for them because you think, just do the right thing. Just don't do that. But that's not how their brain's working. So that's what we try to do is work with them to get that by going to AA meetings, by going to therapy, by getting a sponsor and working through the 12 steps. That's how they get that back, that thinking. So we do everything we can. It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to turn overnight, but it is a huge problem throughout our country. It's a huge problem everywhere, but throughout our country. Wabash is no different than many, many counties. In fact, there are some that are worse. Can't remember the county down near Louisville that had a huge problem a few years ago. Scott County, huge problem. And in fact, we have a lady that's coming tomorrow is from Scott County originally. So there's no short answer and there's no direct answer. It's just time. Yes.
The pharmaceutical companies supposedly were fined so much money. Is that money gonna go to help get more rehab places, or what is that money gonna actually do?
We're seeing some of it come to us in grants and things. We're also, so right now our county council has a grant through the Community Foundation for up to $5,000 for mental health issues because mental health and substance use are so closely tied. Not everybody with substance use has a mental health issue, and not everybody with mental health issues is a substance user, but there's a whole lot of, because if they have mental health issues, they self-medicate. So we're seeing some of that come through. That money from the that specific money is going to start being portioned out shortly. Problem with it is I don't remember the amount like for Wabash County, like 150,000, which sounds like a lot of money. That's not a lot of money. You can't open a rehab center. You can't open a 28-day residential program with that. So what Northeast Indiana is doing is looking and saying, can we put that together for all our counties? And can we open a center? Can we work together to open a residential treatment center, another one that can run, that people who are on, the first thing they have to do is detox, and they go someplace that is residential, means they're there, they aren't using their phones. Social media is not their friend, by the way. I don't know it's any of our friends. Let's be honest, but they can't use their phones. The lady who relapses in a residential treatment program, I can't talk to her. She tried to call me the other day and I couldn't get the phone in time, and I've not been able to get back to talk to her. But it's very focused, very intense, basically an inpatient therapy. And we need more of those. We're getting more houses like Waypoint, but we need more of those intensive therapy programs. So that money's coming. I'm hopeful that we won't just take it in Wabash County and say, oh, what can we do with this? I'm hoping we're going to work together. And I know like the mayor in Wabash is working on that. And it's split, not even by county, but by communities. And then it becomes such minimal money. Nobody's going to be able to do anything with, of any significance. So we're working on it. Yes.
You mentioned that they had to buy their own food. Are there kitchens to prepare? Do they have use of kitchens?
We have a beautiful kitchen. Yes. So she asked if they have to buy their own food, are there kitchens to prepare? And we have a beautiful kitchen, gutted and redone. But it is, they walk in and go, wow. A lot of them do. I'm probably going to put out a call sometime soon for a deep freezer, another freezer, because I don't have enough freezer space. But we have a big refrigerator that was donated, like a chef's refrigerator. And then we have a regular refrigerator freezer, an induction stove. We got all new appliances in there. That was not our intent, but a local appliance manufacturer gave them to us at cost. So we couldn't afford not to do that. It's beautiful. I'd love to have that kitchen. And they do appreciate it. They do. Most of them walk in and just are thrilled by the house because I'm guessing most of them have never lived in a house this nice. Or if they did, it's been a long time. Anything else? Yeah.
I'm sure that there's a zillion different ways that people get started with this. Is some kind of just start from lower things like alcohol or something else to start getting used? Or do they just bump into a friend or something and come in at the top somewhere?
Yes, 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 and yes. Mom and dad used, big brother used, big sister, a cousin. Many just start with drinking and go to marijuana and then are looking for that next good feeling. Most will tell you there's a lot of trauma in families and people with substance use. Not always. Some will tell you, I never had any trauma as a kid. I just, so my bias, women, men tend to lead them down this path, especially if they get in their 20s, 19s and 20s. There's a guy. I hear that a lot. Well, my boyfriend. Well, my husband. Not blaming you men, because it's not always true. And the men may have had a woman lead them down that path, but they do. And, the one lady who left us most recently, it was because of a guy. And she did that the last time. She was on a home detention, the ankle bracelet in Wabash County, cut it and took off with this guy, lived in Texas or somewhere for a few years and finally got arrested and ended up back here. And after she came out of jail, came in and said, oh, nope, I won't do that again. I'm divorcing him. I'm not going to do that. And sure enough, she left because of a guy who was not using. He actually is in recovery as well. And at New Beginnings. And I don't think they're seeing each other now because he's still in recovery and she's using. So it's just a slippery slope. But people use for all sorts of things. I'm amazed some of the ages people started. You know, I started drinking when I was 7. That's so foreign to me. And my father was an alcoholic. I didn't see him drink. I saw him drink once in my life. And I knew he was an alcoholic. I didn't know what that meant too much. I mean, I knew he couldn't drink. Okay. Growing up. My mother, she drank socially. No big deal. So alcohol wasn't banned in my house. It wasn't a big deal, but there was always this is terrible, bottle of Boone's Farm wine in the fridge because that's what my mom drank. Terrible stuff, by the way. I drink socially, but so alcohol was around, but it wasn't a big deal in my family. You know, but kids start drinking at 7. How does that happen? And some will tell you, well, Uncle Joe told me, here, take a drink. So it's all over. The reasons why are all over the place. Anything else I can tell you? Take any information you'd like. If you ever want to gather donations, we'll come pick them up. If you ever want to do anything like that, let me know. If you're ever down in Wabash and want to see the house and tour it, let me know. A lot of stairs, lots of stairs. It's a big old house. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm thinking we might want to start one of those baskets of donations, and I didn't see any of these. Okay. Okay, we thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.